Today on the Pitchbook podcast, we have the amazing Donna Burnham, who is running for mayor of Eagle Mountain. Batter up!
Donna, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
We're just kind of joking a little bit. So we've been having these in my neighborhood. I don't know if it's just unique to this year, but it seems like there's been a ton of cottage meetings and opportunities for citizens to get to know the candidates. People are really excited about this election. So we've been having all the mayoral candidates last night and this night in our neighborhood. Donna just left my neighborhood, drove home, and is jumping right back on. She's like going to be so tired of me after this, but we
That's why I'm
appreciate
here. I'm here to step in and take over, Zach.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Matt can only do 1 hour of Zach at a time. Donna's going to
Exactly.
have to suffer
Yeah.
too here. So, anyways, we're so excited to have you, and you've got a really unique insights, having served on city council. I think 2 or 3 different terms across different spans of time. Now running as mayor, but maybe just like go back before you were known as like the city on the city council in Eagle Mountain. Where did you grow up? And maybe tell us a little bit about your history, background, and what kind of brings you to this point.
Okay. Yeah. I had a very different childhood than most people. My dad was in the Air Force, and so we moved around a lot. I was born in Puerto Rico. My dad is Puerto Rican. So that's interesting in and of itself because my mom is from Iowa. So if you can imagine that match, it's a kind of a funny thing. We grew up. I studied international relations in college, but I think it's because I did it my whole life, right? Because there was such a difference in cultures between my mom and my dad. But anyway, I was born in Puerto Rico. Then we moved to Cheyenne, Wyoming. I think I went to kindergarten in Cheyenne and maybe first grade. I don't remember exactly, but I think that's where it was. And then we went to Azores, Portugal. We lived there for a few years. Because my dad's Spanish, he was able to learn Portuguese really quickly, and so we had the benefit of we didn't live on base. We lived right, in the cobblestone roads downtown, and got to experience that culture. And then we moved from there to Aviano, Italy, which is in the northern part of Italy, which was a really cool place to live. We were able to drive up into the mountains a lot, up into the Alps. It was a beautiful place. I have a lot of fond memories of that. And I was there till I finished sixth grade there. And then my dad stayed and we went and visited my grandparents because when you live overseas, you don't see your grandparents. You don't see that's one of the downsides, right, to all of that is like I didn't grow up knowing my cousins. And so my mom felt that it was really important that we go and spend a few months with my grandparents. So we spent the summer and the first part of the school year with my grandparents. And I love that experience. They live on a farm in Iowa. And completely different than anything I'd experienced before. And so it was a good experience for me to do that. And then my dad got stationed in Oklahoma for a while and then back to Naples, Italy. And Naples, Italy and Aviano, Italy are like two different countries. If you've ever been to Italy, you'll know that you travel an hour and the language is a little bit different and all the food is different. So it was a big, huge leap change for me, but it was an exciting time in my life because I was old enough to really venture out on my own and go on the bus and go downtown and experience that European life. So it was eye opening. Sometimes I would go on my way to school. I'd pass protesters saying Americans go home. So I experienced that. I was in Naples when the U.S. asked permission to refuel over Italy in order to do the Libya attack. And so that was a very tense time. People don't realize the geography of Europe and how very close
Oh yeah.
they are. Yeah, it's pretty dramatic. And so I had those experiences, growing up, and then I went to BYU and I studied international relations.
So did you
Initially, I studied.
graduate? Did you graduate in Italy from high school?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. I graduated on a tennis court in in Italy. Yeah,
So
it was pretty fun.
my mom graduated from school in Afghanistan when from high
Okay,
school, an
okay, yeah,
American school, long before the
yep.
Russians invaded. But interesting that you graduated in a different country. So very cool.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And it was an American school, it was a Department of Defense school, but because it was my dad wasn't serving at a military base, he was serving at a NATO base at the time,
mhm,
and the school served the NATO base as well. And so if anyone from one of the NATO countries that was serving there wanted their kids to go to the school, they could.
mhm.
So I had friends that were Greek, Spaniards, it was a really fascinating school experience. It was very different from anything I had before.
Very
But
cool.
yeah,
So I didn't mean to interrupt you. Then you went to BYU
no, you're good. I
and
went
go
to
on.
BYU. I was studying engineering. I hated it. I'm good at math, and I'm really good at math, and I'm really good at science. So you'd think it would have been a perfect fit, but it just wasn't for me. So I switched my degree to international relations because that was my life, right? And so I got a degree in Spanish and international relations, and I met my husband my senior year. And I guess I didn't study geography well enough because he's from Canada, and I was studying to work at a consulate in South America, so wrong direction. But that's how it worked out, and we got married. And because he's Canadian, he couldn't stay in the U.S. when he was done with his schooling, so we went up to Canada for a while,
What part of Canada
and
was it?
British Columbia.
No, that's a
So
very beautiful
in
place.
the Okanagan Valley. Yeah, it
Oh,
was very
yeah, I've been to
beautiful.
Penticton and
Okay, yep,
Kelowna,
yep.
Kamloops. Beautiful area.
So Vernon is where he's
Vernon,
from.
okay, very
And
cool.
yeah, so it's like an hour from Kelowna. So it's beautiful, five
Hmm.
minutes to three different lakes, ski resorts right up the
Ogopogo,
hill.
for people that don't know,
Ogo
the
Pogo.
less famous monster in the lake that exists, totally exists.
Yep, yep.
Okay,
I'm sure it does. I'm sure it
yeah.
does.
So you moved to
And
you were in Vernon then when you moved up there?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. And we lived there for about 8 years, 8 or 9 years. All my kids were born in Canada,
Hmm.
so they're all dual citizens. So yeah, I have four kids, and then the problem with British Columbia is jobs. It's really they were having a real slump, and so he was looking for work. And our main criteria was that it needed to be close to family, some family. And so we were looking at different places where we had family. And he happens to have a sister who lives in Centerville, and so Utah was one of the places we were looking. And he found a job, and we just didn't look back. We came to Utah, and the crazy thing about Eagle Mountain and us finding Eagle Mountain was we'd been renting and we wanted to buy a home. And so we were living in Provo, and we were looking in Provo, and we were looking at all these houses, and then we heard about Eagle Mountain. And so we kind of thought, well, we'll look. So we drove out there, and oh my gosh, it was out in the middle of nowhere. There were no stoplights, no stores, nothing. There were just a few houses because this was 24 years ago. And so then we made a spreadsheet because we're that kind of people. And we were like, what do we need in a home? And one of the things that was on our spreadsheet was bikes in the front yard and on the sidewalk, because we wanted it to be kid friendly because we had kids, right? We had young kids at the time. And Eagle Mountain was full. That's all it had was kids' bikes in the front yards. It didn't have much else, but it had that, and it had sidewalks. Provo is not big on sidewalks, and so it had safe places for our kids to ride bikes. The price point was better, and so we came, and we haven't looked back. We've just really loved being a part of this community. Eagle Mountain was a little crazy when we first got here, but things have gotten better over
Are you in
time.
the same home or have you moved since?
Same home. Yeah, we're in the
Okay,
same home.
very cool. Very good.
That's awesome. So when did you first, what got you into the political side, like running for city council? How did you do that? How did you like
How did I
build
do
the
that?
network? It's not easy running for city council. I mean, I see it's every single night you're out campaigning, you're meeting with people, doing cottage meetings. It seems like for months on end. Getting a
Yeah.
spouse to be on board with that is probably not an easy feat. and then doing it and
It
then
is a
getting
lot of work.
elected. Yeah, maybe tell us like what was that like your first time running for city council?
So the first time I ran for city council, so in my Vince Lydiard had been serving on the council
Oh,
and he lived in
the
my
voice of Eagle
neighborhood.
Mountain. Oh,
Yes,
I
the
love
voice of Eagle
Vince.
Mountain. Yes,
Oh yeah,
he
we
was
got to
my
have him on
neighbor.
that. We got to have him on. He's like, he has some crazy stories. He's
He
awesome.
does. He can't tell you most of them because they're all top secret, but he has a lot of great stories. Anyway, he was my neighbor, and there was a lot of crazy stuff going on in the city. So we had a mayor kidnap himself, basically. I mean, that's a weird story, but he was extremely stressed, and he just got in his car and just kept driving. And then his wife called, and he was too embarrassed to tell her that he was in California already, and he was super stressed. And so he told her that he'd been carjacked, but that he was safe. So she called the police. So then the police called him, found him, and so then he lied to the police, and it was a whole thing, right? So we always just say he kidnapped himself. He didn't really, but that's the story. Then we had another mayor, Brian Olson, who stole money from the city, and that was fun. That was a party a minute. And none of our mayors ever lasted more than 2-3 years, right? We just
Yeah.
ran through mayors. We were really hard on our mayors, and we called it the Wild Wild West. And at the time that I ran for the first time, the council members were doing case investigations of each other. One council member would vote the opposite of whatever another council member voted for because they hated each other. They didn't care what they were voting on. It was just that kind of insanity that was happening. And Vince Lydiard said, "We need grown-ups on city council. You need to run." And I was like, "What?" It, in spite of the fact that I have a degree in international relations and took tons of political science classes, that hadn't even crossed my mind until he said that. And apparently that's common with women. Women don't think of things like that until someone asks. So if you know good women that you think would be good in politics, you need to ask them because they need to be asked. We just are wired differently. And so I ran, and I was a total unknown. I made my own signs with wood and I painted on
Cool.
them. I had no money. And I was running against Heather Jackson, who was very well known, right? And she beat me by 32 votes, my first selection. And typically when people lose an election, they just disappear. But I was like, I'm fascinated by
32.
this. I'm
32 is
fascinated by
tempting. You
what.
can't walk away from that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I started attending. I always joke that I had a better attendance record than half the council members because I came every week and I'd come to work session and I'd watch and I'd go to the policy session, and I learned so much from that and decided I think I can do this. So I did it. I ran again, and they treated me like I was an incumbent, because I knew so much, right? Because I've been going to the meetings and I knew what the issues were. And so I did very well and I won. And it's kind of the rest is history. People ask me why I did it for 2 terms and then I was done, right? I was done and I was ready to walk away. I felt like I'd made a good impact on the city. And then so I took a 2-year break. I was working for the library part-time while my kids finished up school. And then we got to a point where the council was going to have only one experienced council member, and that would have been one that had only been on the council for 2 years. So we were losing our depth. And that history is important to understand how we got there, to we don't make the same mistakes that were made in the past and we can move forward. And so I decided to run again. And that's where I'm at now. Here involved in the city.
So each council member term is 2 years.
It's 4 years.
So you served for 8 years.
Yeah.
Took a 2-year break.
Yeah.
Jump back in. And you're just finishing your 12th year.
No. My 16th year.
Your 16th year on. Okay. I didn't realize that. So you've just had back-to-back terms.
Yep.
And this one's, so it's like mayor or bust.
That's it. Yeah. After this last term, I was like, you know what? I have to be done. And in terms of city council is where policies are made, where legislation for the city is made, land use decisions are made. And at a certain, I feel like you need experience, and we have a lot of experienced council members right now, but they haven't been as long as me. It's time for new blood. That's what I think. So in terms of the council, it's time for new blood. I'd wanted to run for mayor 8 years ago, chose not to. So I decided I'm going to go for it. If I don't get it, I'll just find different ways to help the city to become the best that it can be, and I'll
Sure.
find something else to do.
So
Yeah.
you probably get this question a lot then. Why run for mayor? Why not just ride off into the sunset, kidnap yourself on a horse, ride off in the sunset? Why mayor? Why more, I guess, responsibility? What's the reason?
Because there are some issues with the city that I feel like need some help that you can't do as a council member. We're having some communication issues between council and staff. So between council and the mayor, and council and staff. And I feel like we need better communication to solve those issues. And I think we're getting in our own way with the communication issues that we have. And I want to be part of that solution. And so that's why I decided to run. Yeah.
Yeah, good round 20 years in public service.
Yeah, and that will be it. My husband retires in 5 years, and
Okay,
so
that's
yeah,
perfect. So he'll
I'm
be done.
retiring as well. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So tell us a little bit of just about your philosophy over those 16 years. I would imagine even as an adult running for city council, you probably think about things differently than you did your first term on city council. What is your philosophy around governance now today? Like when you're sitting on the dais making decisions, and there's a multitude of decisions every city council
Yeah.
meeting, how do you like think about things and prioritize? What are your priorities?
Okay. Well, I try to base my votes on principles. For example, I'm a fiscal conservative. I walk the walk, I talk the talk. We own our house, we have no debt. I call myself a Ramsey girl. I'm Ramsey certified. I I try to do as much of that as possible with the city. There's some interesting things that keep us from doing that. The state does not allow us to set aside very much money. Like people are like, why don't you just save money for the city hall? We can't. We're legally not allowed to. So there's some frustrations with that, but that's one of the things that drives me, is always trying to make sure that we're fiscally responsible. Property rights are really important to me, and I don't live in an HOA because I don't like other groups telling me what to do with my property. And so I don't want to be the person that tells other people what to do with their property. Um, for when they're impacting someone else's life. And so that's a fine balance that we have to do. For example, when the ranches away dissolved, they wanted to kind of, okay, so I'm a Ramsey girl. I believe in fiscal responsibility. That's one of the main principles. Another one is that government should only do what residents can't do for themselves. So we provide sewer, we provide water, roads, parks, things like that. I be about when we step into boundaries where we're competing with the private sector. So I worry about things like a rec center not ruling out a rec center, but I worry about if we're competing with the private sector. For example, I have a friend who put her heart and soul into a dance studio here in Eagle Mountain. She built it. And so how would that be if, all of a sudden, we build a rec center and we have dance classes at it, and we're competing and taking customers from her because maybe we can do it cheaper, because of government rates for buildings and all of that. So if we do a rec center, we would have to be extremely careful, in my view, to not compete with the private sector, because that's not the proper role of government, in my view. That's just me. Another thing that's really important to me with government is remembering that government is as a group project. That's what it is. And that makes it slower. But sometimes with government, that's okay. It's good to be slower, because sometimes when you move too fast, you make serious mistakes that impact people's lives. But I know people get frustrated with the speed of government. Local government's faster than others, but it still feels sometimes slow as molasses. But when you have that group project and you have that synergy in the group, it can be an amazing thing, because you can start with an idea and 3 people like it and 2 people hate it. But if those 2 people that hate it stay in the conversation and work to get it better, all of a sudden at the end, you have this thing that is so much better than it was when it started. And even if the people who disagree still don't agree, they still made it better by staying in the process. And that's how I see government is you stay in the process. You stay and you debate and you work towards what you want, and work towards the better. Even if you're not going to get your way, you work to make it better, so it's better for the residents. So that's one of the things. And also just surrounding yourself with people, with our city employees, are trained, and they know so much. And it's important for us to make sure we're picking their brains, figuring out things, not only just them, but looking outside of that. What are other cities doing? What other great ideas are out there? We're not the smartest people in the world. We're just normal people. I'm not a sewer expert. I'm not a water expert, but there are sewer experts and water experts in our city, and there's sewer experts and water experts in our state. And so in terms of making decisions, I always try to get all the information that I can, not just from our council packet, but from outside sources as well. And that's kind of how I make my decisions. I try not to make my decisions by who's in the room. And it's very tempting to do that, right? Because you get these people that are very upset about some issue, and rightfully so a lot of times. But you have to be careful when you're making those decisions to make sure that you're making principled decisions, not decisions just because there's a lot of people in the room that are angry.
Yeah, there's a great book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, where he talks about the emotional brain response. And I've been there. I've been to city council before, just amped up, like they are going to get it from me. But over time, as you continue through the process and learn how things work and how things function, you're like, I got to approach this from a like appeal to some other reason that would compel the city council to be like, this is a risk for the city, or this makes sense
Yeah.
to resolve this. So you have to kind of slow down and go to the thinking side of your brain and the logical side and appeal that way. Thank you. So like with City Hall, that's something that's been discussed or is being discussed. There were, I think, 20 acres purchased. That is not a small, to build anything, it costs 50 to 100 million dollars. Usually they'll tell you it'll cost 50 million, but it'll end up costing 100. How would you approach that? Do you view that as like building a school? We build it now, bond it, or save up, do it over time? How would you approach the City Hall decision?
Yeah. So we can save up a certain amount of money through impact fees and things like that. But unfortunately, state law only allows us to have a certain amount of reserve in it's a certain percentage. I think it's 35% of our general fund. that we can save. So it doesn't get very far, right? It doesn't get us very far. And so we have to look at things like bonding. We've talked about, we could talk about waiting, but it just gets more expensive, right? Um, Costs aren't getting lower; they're getting higher. We own the land. That's the good news. So that's the first step, and we've done a lot of the planning part of it. So now it's just trying to nail down how we're going to pay for it. And so we've hired a company to look at that, give us advice on what's the best way for Eagle Mountain to pay for it? How are we going to get our best deal? One of the things that I see that I think would be ideal is we know that our city is going to continue to grow, and and right now we don't have room for our employees. That's one of the reasons we're looking at building a new city hall. We're already renting space for several of our employees, and we're going to continue to need to add to our personnel. And so where do we put all of these people? So a new city hall would help us with that. My thought is build it bigger than we need to, because we're going to need it to be bigger, and let's rent the space that we don't need and help use that to put towards the payment to pay it down. So I'm hoping that can make it more affordable. Some other ideas that we're looking at is building maybe some of the downtown part, the store frontage part, to generate income, which could also help offset the costs of the downtown. Because initially we thought we'll build the city hall first and then we'll build the rest. And now we're playing around with a bunch of different ideas, just trying to figure out what way is going to be the most cost effective for our residents. But I will say this, I don't think if we have to raise taxes to build City Hall, we shouldn't build it. We can wait. We'll figure it out until we can get that there. But I don't think that we'll need to raise taxes. I think that we can do it without raising taxes.
Yeah, that's always a good principle. I know a lot of residents that live here because they want low taxes and
Yeah, it's something I'm
inflation.
really proud of.
Yeah.
It's something I haven't raised our taxes I have never voted to raise our taxes, and so our property taxes, and that's really important to me because we watch what's happened with the school district, and property taxes have just gone up and up and up, and that's one of the reasons I'm excited about the split, because I think that dynamic is going to change, and I'm really hopeful that our property taxes will drop because of that split. So
Yeah.
that will help, because it's hard on families
Would you be
to have to keep going higher.
would you be willing to share maybe just a personal life experience, something that really was difficult to get through or battle through, or was
Yeah,
emotionally difficult for you?
yeah, sure. Um, and I'm just going to lead with, I hope this doesn't upset you personally, Zach. The reason I say that is because we belong to a club, and it's not a fun club. I have 4 kids, but when you ask me back at a cottage meeting, you asked me where my kids live, I only mentioned 3. It's because my first child only lived 36 hours. She was born with a heart defect that is hereditary. She got it from me. But like I was born with a hole in my heart, and in one chamber of my heart. She was born with a hole in every chamber of her heart.
Wow.
I have what's a prolapse in one of my valves, heart valves. All of her valves had prolapses in it. And then she went up to me by having her aorta was constricted. And so, and she was born in Canada, and, limited health care, that kind of thing. And so they chose not to operate. And so she died in my arms, and that was hard. I remember being angry about that, and wondering, would it have been different, if we'd been in the U.S. at the time, would she have
Hmm.
lived? And I don't know that she would have. I think she would have had a lot of surgeries and maybe had a poor quality of life and then passed away anyway. Um, And I know that you lost a child and she was much older, and my heart breaks for you because I know how hard it was to lose a baby, and I can't even imagine losing a child that you have so many memories with, you know. But it's getting past that anger, with God, with just the loss of the hopes and dreams, because your children are your hopes and your dreams, right? And then being told that it's genetic, and that maybe you might not, maybe you shouldn't have kids. And we took the risk, and it wasn't a huge risk, but it was a risk, and we were able to have 3 more kids, and none of them have the same problem, thank goodness.
Yeah.
um, but I learned a lot of compassion from that. And I learned how to talk to people in a different way, because I remember people coming up to me, well-meaning, loving people, hugging me and telling me, "You're young, you can have another baby." And I'm thinking to myself, "I can't have this one. This is the one I want, you know?"
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
And they didn't get it. But then this lady came to me. It was somebody I didn't really even know well. And she came up to me and she said, "Donna, I want to talk to you. Can I come in?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So she came inside and she said, "Tell me about your daughter." And she just asked me questions about her. And she was the first person that actually wanted to talk about her, because it makes people uncomfortable,
Oh
right?
yeah. You sure?
And that changed the way I see the world. I wanted to be that person for other people, and I have been that person for other people. So it's kind of put me in a place where I can help other people who have gone through some, like I've had friends who've had miscarriages and different things like that, and I've been able to talk to them and help them get through the dark days, because there are dark days. They just are. Some people are amazing. You can get through things a lot easier, and others it's harder. And yeah, I learned a lot from that.
What's her name?
Her name's Cosette.
Oh, Gal, that's a beautiful name.
Yeah, I know. It's from Les Mis, one of my favorite books.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful name. Yeah, it's not a club you ever expect to be a part of. I doing family history and learning about our, some of our pioneer ancestors. You learn they lost 3, 4, 5 children. I'm
Yeah,
thinking, man, one is like all is the emotional toll I could possibly stand in this lifetime. I'm so sorry
yeah,
for your loss. But it's also inspirational that you like did continue on. I feel like that you have that choice. I always tell people if you're driving from Salt Lake, getting on I-15, you can either go north or you can go south. You can't go straight because you'll go right into the divider. And that's kind of the
yep,
choice you have to make, either a good life, bad outcome here, good life, positive, help people, or it's like misery and you
yeah,
really have to, you're forced to make that choice. And I don't know if you know this, one thing that we were told with our daughter, I don't mean to dwell on this, but they said something like 85% of couples that lose a child, their marriages end in divorce. And they
yeah,
told us that
yeah.
on the front, and I was like, well, that's not great news.
No, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
thanks
yeah.
for
They
cheering
talked
me
to
up
us about
there.
that as well. Yeah,
So kudos for keeping your marriage together too, because that's a lot of
yeah,
stress for a young mother and husband that doesn't know what to say or do either. So thank you
yeah.
for
We've been
sharing
married
that,
almost 40 years, so yeah, we stuck together,
little
and it's
Cosette.
it's hard because you grieve differently, right? So yeah,
Oh, for
getting through
sure.
that
You
was
know what
difficult.
my grieving process? I built a fence, an HOA approved fence in Eagle Mountain by myself, and I painted it that ugly Monterey gray. For those who've lived out here for a while, that used to be just like the ugliest color they picked for the city. I hope you didn't pick that color, Donna.
I did
I like that
not.
color. I like the gray.
Matt
I
loved
like
the
the gray.
Monterey gray.
I'm
He
on I'm on board with gray.
was like
Everything in
in
my
his
house was gray.
camo suit outside. Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that. That's a
Yeah.
really personal story. I appreciate you sharing that. What on the flip side, like what's been your biggest success in life? Obviously raising your family, but anything else that you'd want to share?
The biggest is my family. I think, I look at my kids and I watched them, all of them struggled. And it seems like they all struggled at 14, right? That was the tough age. And like, I had a daughter that was anorexic for a brief period in her life. And, just my sons just struggled with things. And I look at them now and they want to be together. We have family dinner once a week and they want to be together and they enjoy their time together, and they're so smart with money, which my husband and I weren't always smart with our money. It wasn't until like my husband was a school teacher and he didn't get paid all the time, right? He only got paid for the 9 months, and then the 3 months that he was off, he didn't get paid. And so we would put that 3 months on a credit card. We'd pay it off till Christmas, and then we put Christmas on a credit card. I mean, that's how we lived. And then we got introduced to Dave Ramsey, and so I started, changing how I lived. And I look at my kids, and my son, when he was 18, bought a house. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
They're pretty incredible, and I feel like that's my success. I taught them that, and
Yeah.
and I feel like they learned that, and they're great. They pay taxes. They're smart. They're kind. They're helpers, and that for me is the greatest success. I mean, we've had a lot of great things happen with the city, like Corey Ride. Corey Ride is my pride and joy. I fought for that park. So many, like, we sold the utilities and we were using the utility money to do this amazing park for our residents. And then of course Ryan and I left the council, right? And then I sat there for 2 years listening to them talk about how they were going to take away the money that we put towards Corey Ride and, spread it out a little bit here and there. And I understood that, but they were missing the vision of this park that would bring us together. Because if you remember, it was city center and the ranches and nothing in between.
Yeah.
And that park brought us together. And I'm so glad um, that wiser heads prevailed and that they kept the funding there, and we have this amazing park that people come from surrounding cities because it's such a great park, and it's still got more to go. And of course we've done other parks in other areas of the city, like Smith Ranch Park. We finally got that going. So I think that's, as far as success with the city, that's my pride and joy, is Corey Ride Park.
If you haven't been to Corey Ride Park Saturday mornings, if you want to challenge Matt Liggett to a game of pickleball, he will destroy you. I've tried. I've tried. So I just have like negative scarring tissue from just getting pummeled by Matt at pickleball. It is a beautiful park. It's fantastic right by the middle school. I feel like that was really well designed. The whole layout is fantastic. And Officer Ride was actually killed just outside of my neighborhood. That I remember when that
Yeah,
happened shortly
I
after
do
we moved
too.
here. And there's a cool memorial on SR 73. That's awesome. Thank you for pushing Corey Ride Park through. That's awesome. As we kind of wrap up here, maybe share with us your favorite book or what you're reading. Doesn't have to be you like murder mysteries, I understand. Is there any particular one book that just stands out that you feel like if people read this book, it would be a great advantage in their life?
Les Miserables is probably one of my favorite of all time, except for when he talks about the streets of Paris, which is interesting because that's one of my husband's favorite parts, because he served a mission in Paris, and so he walked those streets. But for me, that part I didn't get. But is it Monsieur Bienvenu, the cardinal, whatever he was, the bishop, or he wasn't a bishop, he was just a priest. I mean, such an amazing man, and Jean Valjean and Javert and that. I mean, I think we all have a little bit of both of them in us, and um, it's a powerful, powerful story, and they made a powerful musical out of it, and I love that, and that's why we named our first daughter Cosette, because of that. I love that. I just love that book.
It's a great name. Awesome. Well, thank you. Well, where can people find you? learn about your platform, running for mayor, email, website, whatever you'd like to share.
My website is burnham4mayor.com, the number 4. And my email is dburnham@gmail.com, which is pretty easy. Yeah, and my cell phone number, my city email are on the city website. I encourage people to text me, reach out to me. You can you can tag me on Facebook and I will respond, but otherwise, I don't spend a lot of time. I try to check Facebook several times a day just to see if there are questions, and I try to answer as many as I can, but I'm not on it all the time. It's not good for mental health to be on it all the time, and so I just don't do that. But I do try. So I do have a Facebook page, Councilmember Burnham. You can follow that, and I share all the city stuff so you can know what's going on in the city. I do. That's kind of how I use that page.
Cool.
So yeah, that's how you reach me.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna. Matt.
Well, we appreciate it, Donna. Thanks for hopping on the call and bearing with us on our little technical difficulties. Anybody that didn't notice, we switched a little bit of things up here, but appreciate you being on, Donna. Thanks to everyone who listens to the Pitchbook podcast. Thanks to Deja Vega for letting us use the music. We'll catch you next time on the Pitchbook podcast.